And by the way, special thanks to everybody here at KKOB in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Very gracious here at the studios and our event tomorrow that has been sold out for weeks now. So I look forward to seeing all of you coming to the event. And we'll have some fun before I pop back on a plane and head back to Los Angeles. And then back to St. Louis for Thanksgiving and Christmas with my kids. And then back to L.A. again in January, February, and part of March, as I escape the cold of St. Louis. Up next, Friday the 13th open lines. Richard C. Hoagland is with us still, and Dr. Robin Falkov as well. So we'll take calls for them, too. That's all next on Coast to Coast AM. It's the Trilogy Hour now on Coast to Coast AM with Richard C. Hoagland, Robin Falkov manning the desk with me, and Friday the 13th open lines as well. So you can make a call for Richard or for Robin or just one of these Friday the 13th calls. We'll go, first of all, to Phil in Southern California, west of the Rockies. Phil, go ahead. You're on with us.
Well, hi again there, George.
Hi, Philip. What's up?
I got to tell you the truth. I heard that you're interested in the truth and you want to hear the truth.
Yeah, let's try.
Let's give it a try. First of all, I want to address the swine flu situation back in 1976 when they put out the first round of inoculation.
And you're one of the few to remember that, Phil. Very good.
Well, I'll be 55 on the 16th of this month.
Happy birthday.
Are you older than me, or am I?
I'm 4 years older than you.
Oh, yeah, we're almost brothers. So back in the 76, the truth about the swine flu inoculations is this. The CIA was storing some radioactive super poisons in the inner core vault at Fort Knox, Kentucky. And the drums they were in started to leak. Then they were ordered to get rid of it. And it just so happens there's two underground rivers goes underneath Fort Knox, and they dumped them in there. Showed up in the nation's water supply and traces nationwide. And that's why they put out the swine flu inoculations, in case to cover it up, in case people started dying from drinking the radioactive contaminated water.
And I bet they must have, Phil, and they just kept it quiet.
Yeah, so there's only one thing that comes to mind, George, when you hear the word swine flu. That's cover-up for something worse.
That's Robin. He's probably right.
It's a very, very interesting information, definitely, because there's always a distraction that seems to take over the media when they're trying to keep our attention away from something else.
We go to Nick in New Jersey on the wild card line. Nick, go ahead.
Well, it's a pleasure to speak with you, George. That's the first time. And good evening, Richard and Robin.
Good evening.
Hello.
There's a lot that I could share, but I'll keep it very brief. With regard to the swine flu, I deal with several nutraceutical companies that have their own FDA laboratories, FDA-sanctioned laboratories, if you will. And a good friend of mine in the South, I won't mention what state, indicated to me with the vaccine that was found and checked by the Czech Republic back in the wintertime of this year, and was found to have live avian bird flu in it. And he is an immunologist, one of the top in the country, and he said to me, they were incredulous about it, and they're all big listeners, George, and he explained to me that what they had done was dig up from cadavers from the Eskimos in 1918 up there in Alaska, and had reconstituted the virus and had put live avian bird flu. And his comment was, Nick, you don't even discuss those things amongst our scientists, much less mention them in the same sentence. And I asked him, I said, well, what are you talking about? And he said, the reason they're doing this is because they understand that there's something in this country that they can't control. And I said, what's that? And he said, people in this country aren't going to put up with what's going on and being put upon them, and they're going to target the South. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, where do you think all the chickens are in this country? They're raised in warm weather. And I said, okay. And then he pointed me to where he went and took a look at actually out in the fields down there in Athens or in Georgia, outside of Walmart, where there's these 50,000 multi-body plastic coffins that are stacked wide out in the open. And he said that the reason this is going on is that the South is going to not stand for what's happening to this country, and he says they're going to do it by the avian flu. He said it's not getting any publicity at all except from a small BBC, this was back in February or March, about the swine flu having live avian bird flu in it. And the other thing I wanted to mention was that it's really a pleasure, Richard, to listen to what you have to say, because I've had dealings directly with former C-level individuals of defense contractors, and they have told me that they have had certain propulsion systems in place since the 60s and 70s that can take us between planets. Mm-hmm. And I was amazed with that. The guy said, the challenge isn't the speed. The challenge is the human condition over the distance. They can't get it. They can't get it protective enough that the guys can travel at certain speeds without effects to their bodies. And so, it's amazing to hear what goes on, because I'm sharing with you that there is stuff going on. When that swine flu thing happened in the springtime, I'm a caddy on a golf course, well known in New Jersey, and I was out there that weekend when Janet Napolitano pushed through that military alert, which, George, somebody reported on your show.
That's
that
right.
Happened that Saturday night. And I was standing out in the middle of central New Jersey, and every line looked like they had 12 or 15 fishing lines going straight east to west across the country on a beautiful Saturday and Sunday evening. There was more high-level airline straight-line traffic than I had ever seen, and I've caddied for 35 years on golf courses. And that was that weekend, and I wondered why they pushed it up to a stage 5 or whatever elevation they called it. So there is something deliberate that's going on, and the biggest thing that I want to share is to connect the dots to me on all of the national and domestic economic situation and all the other things that are put together. I am surprised that nobody is standing up outraged and saying, if we put this and this and this and this together, that something deliberate is being done to try to, and I know you guys are touching on it, and I was just curious what all you wonderful folks thought about the obviousness of this net that's being laid out in front of us. The last thing I want to say is, as a Christian, fact is that God has a plan for everybody to feel comfortable and peaceful about what's happening in this world, in this country. And I certainly hope, George, that you have some real men of faith scheduled to come on the show, because there are miracles happening every day in people's health and healings that I'm part of and other things. And I think the folks would want to know that the Lord still sits on the throne, and I'm not being crazy about it, but I appreciate your time.
All right, Nick. And, he's right about the swine flu. There's something very weird going on here, Rob. Something strange.
What bothers me immensely is how the stories have changed, where they would tell people, okay, if you've had it, you don't have to worry about being vaccinated. And now, because this snowball was set in motion and there's so much money that's been spent, the recommendations are, you have to get vaccinated just in case, even if you think you had it.
How can they make a vaccine on a virus that they claim is going to mutate? How do they make it, and so fast?
That's the big weird question. Yes, and Tamiflu and Relenza, there are already strains that are resistant. Off to California we go. Ed, you're on the air with us. Hey, Ed.
Yes, Ed of Placentia, California.
Uh-huh.
My initials are ETP, and I work out of Roswell, New Mexico. I am 76 years old. I'm like a 30-year-old man, and I'm still working. As an engineer,
you sound like a 30-year-old.
In material science, and I have a question for Richard Hoagland.
He's standing right here.
Okay, here's the deal. I'm very interested. I think about the 3 phases of matter, and I think about triple points and the other things. You're talking about water being locked there, and I knew ahead of time there'd be water there. That's another program. But nevertheless, there is such a thing as sublimation at hard vacuums, and that the water would sublime, the ice would sublime over time unless it's trapped. And you didn't make that clear